Welcome to Victims and Villains, a podcast extension of the nonprofit that creates content to educate and engage individuals like yourselves on mental health awareness and suicide prevention through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I am your host for this episode, or at least one of the hosts, and I am joined once again by Mr. Alan Cram.
And I am currently driving, so if I don't say much, that's why.
Well, this is part 2 to our creature feature coverage for this year, 2022, and we just got out of Tim Cappello's concert. This was the first time that I've ever seen anything quite like this.
Yeah, that was the big draw for the night. That the reason we stuck around so late was because of that concert, and we didn't stay for the whole thing, but man, does he put on a show. Like, it was very entertaining. He was very energetic and very talented. Like, I really can't wait to go back and rewatch our interview with him now. So,
yeah, I was very surprised by, because I've seen Lost Boys a few times, and I'm like, all right, this guy seems like he could put on a good show, crowd. I believe that crowd is not acting. I believe that's genuine now, getting to see him, because that was incredible.
It was, and I want to say that our night took a different turn than I expected it to a few times since we last recorded, because we were recording this intro about 4 hours after we recorded the part 1 intro, because we wanted to talk about some things that were going on later in the event, and my plans for the night kind of changed on a dime. I had planned on seeing a few shorts in the theater with Josh, but I checked Facebook before the film started, and we had mentioned before that the Hocus Pocus film was being shown outside drive-in style for everyone to go see. At the last minute, the cast of Hocus Pocus decided to do a live commentary outdoors to Hocus Pocus. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to that.
Yeah, you got to see a commentary. I got to see a commentary. How was the Hocus Pocus commentary?
It was very fun. They did a great job of not talking over everyone's favorite parts, but also just providing a little bit of insight, behind the scenes stories and fun anecdotes throughout the whole thing. I think they were sharing a microphone, so Vanessa Shaw and Omari Katz talked a little bit more than Jason Marsden, but he would chime in every once in a while. But it was a lot of fun, and I've got to give credit to Craig, who runs the event. I was able to meet up with him out during the screening. He was standing near where I was, and I went over to him and was like, hey, I just got to ask, was this planned from the get-go, or was this their idea? And he looks at me with a big smile. I was like, this was their idea. I was like, dude, this is awesome. You've put on a great show. I was just so happy for him. It was just a great moment. He was handing out popcorn to everyone in the crowd. It was a good time.
Yeah, I was not there. I was going to see Victim No More, support the Bobby and James, who we had on the show, or maybe on this episode, because we're going to fix all this in post. But
that's Josh deciding that they're going to be part of this episode and not the other one.
Yeah, they'll find a home somewhere. But yeah, no, man, this year, I really think that Craig and Sandy, the couple that runs this festival, just really absolutely outdid themselves with it in every way imaginable.
Yeah, Sandy was there at the concert right next to us jamming out, so it was a good time. They were having a ball, and I'm super happy for them. They had a great event, and I can't wait to come back next year.
Well, let's say we kick this off. Without further ado, this is more coverage, interviews, and independent projects you should check out, and just an all-around, just a little slice of what you get and what you can expect at each year's Creature Feature. Make sure that you guys follow them. It's Creature Feature Weekend on Facebook, Instagram, at creaturefeatureweekend.com. We thank you guys for listening, and we hope you enjoy. What's going on, guys? We are back with some more independent filmmakers. I'm here with Melissa.
Hello.
And Chris.
What's up?
So you guys have quite the spread. You guys look like you guys have been making films for quite a while. What got you involved into making films?
Making movies? Oh my gosh. Well, I guess since I was a little kid, I've always been attracted to horror stuff. I was partially raised by a very superstitious Italian Catholic godmother, my Lulu, as I called her. She would always tell me these crazy stories about urban legends, but she would swear they were true. And she used to sit me down, and I used to tell stories, and she used to type them up on her typewriter. And when I found the family camcorder, I just started making stop-motion movies, and then, it just went crazy from there. But I've been making movies, I guess, I don't want to say professionally, but I guess it's professionally, probably for the last 20 years or so. So, yeah.
That's really impressive.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And how about you?
So I met Chris when I auditioned for Call Girl of Cthulhu, which is about 8 years old at this point. It's crazy. Time flies. I did a lot of theater before then, and then was looking for something new to do, and ended up being more than I bargained for. And now I'm also a horror host, Aurora Borealis. I'm just incognito today. So we're here with Chris's movies and my new DVD.
So I always like to ask horror hosts / hostesses how they come up with their look.
Oh, yeah. So Aurora Borealis is an undead dame. So her look is very classy, but still a little bit of fun, think headpieces with a fortune teller's ball that lights up, or a full graveyard on my head. So a little bit drag, a little bit vintage.
And how long did it take you to kind of perfect the look of Aurora Borealis? Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. That's a really good question, because I look back at old photos, and people like to use the phrase glow up, and Aurora definitely had a glow up, because when I first started, it was a little bit more simple, and now she's just kind of wild, big eyeliner, a little bit Elvira, a little bit just straight up drag queen.
All right. Well, switching gears over to you. Before I start talking about the movies, can I bring in some visual aids that are...
Please, yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to... Is this a vinyl?
Yes, that's a record. So that's a spoken word sequel. So the movie I made that most people seem to care about, or that they do care about the most, is a movie called Wnf Halloween Special, which is currently streaming on Shudder, if you have Shudder. And it's basically a fake news broadcast in the 1980s where a local reporter goes to do a live TV broadcast from a town's haunted house. And every 5 minutes in the movie is a fake commercial break where you show all these businesses fake commercials for their businesses, like 80s style, right? So the LP is a spoken word sequel / prequel that essentially is almost like radio drama type stories, but the local newscaster does some of those. And we're actually showing the sequel out there, Halloween Mega Tape, tonight at the convention here, Creature Features.
The reason why I brought this up is because I know that the first one is famous for the VHS, and a part of me is are these laser discs? But they are not.
They are not laser discs. I don't even know if anyone still manufactures laser discs. If they do, maybe that's what I should do for the sequel. I should put it exclusively on laser discs.
So for those of you guys that don't know what Laserdisc is, Laserdisc was vinyl-sized movies that you had to flip over every so often. They were the
big CDs
precursor to VHS.
Totally, yeah. No,
Yeah, see, I have a Laserdisc.
Oh,
so
yeah. I've never owned a Laserdisc player, actually. I just went right from VCRs to DVD players. So
I don't own a player. I own just a Laserdisc.
Just look at them. They were just I think this movie would be about.
Yo, $4. I'm a huge Nicolas Cage fan, so I bought Face Off.
Hell yeah. Is one side John Travolta and then the other side is Nick Cage?
They missed out on the marketing opportunity for that. But no, it is not. So let's jump in and talk about some of these things. I'm just going to put this right back here. This first one is, you brought it up already, Call Girl of Cthulhu. Tell us a little bit about this movie. This movie is also streaming on Prime. I know that.
It's on Tubi right now. I think it might still be on Prime. It was on Prime, then Prime pulled a lot of their more salacious content. So we got pulled because there's a lot of sex and violence in that one. But no, it's basically about a virginal artist who falls in love with a sex worker who's destined to be the bride of the alien god Cthulhu. And crazy monster movie, really gory, really over the top, pretty insane. So. Yeah.
All right, well, you guys check that out. And then this one next.
What happens next will scare you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys might remember this one from our coverage last year of, I want to say, Fantasia Fest. I honestly don't know which festival we covered this one at, but it has been covered by us. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this is basically, imagine like workers at a BuzzFeed office voting on their top 13 scariest viral videos. So it's an anthology film where all the different segments are about sort of like these weird found footage things. The paranormal couple, the burgers from the Wnf Halloween Special, come back and they investigate a possessed teddy bear in that one.
All right. Well, and you also have DVDs out here as well.
I do. So this is my brand new Shock Tale Hour DVD. So all original episodes I wrote. Chris and I sort of co-directed. He shot it all, edited it all. Original episodes with a full cast of characters. I make up a custom cocktail that's on theme and walk the audience through making it. So we've got werewolves, zombies, and blobs. And where the blobs come in is this is my 2021 Blobfest virtual variety show, which has some wild games like making people bob for blobs.
All right. All right. You can literally do anything with horror.
Do I what?
You said you can literally do anything with
horror.
horror.
You absolutely can do anything with horror. It's it's a just like boundless field to play in.
So one of the things that we'd like to talk about that separates us from other publications is our use of mental health through pop culture. And being creators, how have you guys feel like this has kind of helped your mental health?
I think for me, particularly with my live show that I do with Shock Tale Hour, I thrive on creating experiences for people. And one of the things that I do at all my live shows is we have a drawing contest. And it's just really wonderful to look out at a room full of adults, like drawing with crayons and just like immersing themselves in doing something that's just like very kinetic and fun. And I feel like it just sort of contributes to a general well-being, like giving people a chance to just kind of revisit their childhoods and experience something all together. And I just love being able to do that for people.
What about you, Chris?
I would say horror for me is just a great, tension release. The genre itself exists essentially as like that sort of weird dance between like suspense and the cathartic emotion of just having that moment. I make horror comedies, which I feel is very unique in the sense that like there's a dance between being scary and being funny, and oftentimes that dance is like a very welcome one because you're dealing with such extreme emotions, right? Laughter and also fear. For me personally, I think making art has been so important because I find when I don't have a million things going on, I get pretty depressed, and that's something that I struggle with a lot. So like having that opportunity to create and sort of use my art to sort of like fill that void of emptiness or whatever you would say, that we're like, art makes the world a better place. So that's what making movies and making this weird shit is. That's why it's important to me.
I couldn't agree more. And so you brought this up earlier with the Halloween special. It's now, the first one's now streaming on Shudder. Are there plans for the second one, perhaps, or can you not disclose that information?
No. So I haven't talked to anyone streaming it, mostly because I want to keep it as someone finds it and gets it directly from the filmmakers. It probably will be streaming sometime in years, but for right now, it's only available through our website, so wnuf.bigcartel.com. You can get it direct from us, which always, that's always benefits us way more than signing a blanket deal to a streaming service. I mean, Shudder's been great, but ultimately, I think it's going to be a long time before we put it on streaming. Mostly just because I love physical media.
Oh, me too, man. I'm glad I'm not alone.
Of course, the Laserdisc man.
Yeah.
Laserdisc. All right. Well, where can people follow you guys online?
ShockTaleHour.com or on Instagram, Aurora_Gorealis, or on Twitter, Aurora Gorealis.
All right. And you, sir?
And so Twitter for me would be /Chris LaMartina, Instagram Chris.LaMartina. And like I said, WNUF.BigCartel.com. You can get all our stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much, and be on the lookout for all of their films. Go check them out. If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now, and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us. Every so often in the wild, a podcaster finds another podcaster, and I'm here with JB from Camp Nightmare Podcast. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, man. I'm enjoying Creature Feature. It's only day 2, and it's already lit.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. We had a really big night last night. We hosted the Friday the 13th Halloween franchise showdown panel, and Savini just showed up without us knowing at all. Tom Savini just showed up to our panel, and it was fucking incredible to interview him. Yeah. How was your guys' experience so far?
Our experience has been pretty good so far, man. We sat down, we got a lot of good interviews, and met a lot of cool people. So, I always love Creature Feature. It's one of my favorite cons to do.
Dude, this is our 3rd year doing it. We've been here every year that they've done it. Yeah. And it's funny, what you guys are doing, the first year we were here, we just straight up guerrilla style. We're like jumping on people and interviewing them, and that's kind of how we developed our format for the podcast was guinea pigging it here. But yeah, man, it's been a blast. We were talking before the interview started about what you guys do in terms of mental health and the genre community, and that's kind of why we're here, right? This is our chance to get together with our people and be a lifeline for each other, and that's kind of what I've seen only in a day already being here. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, that's what I love about coming to cons like this, is because outside in gen and pop area, you kind of feel just a weirdo. Yeah. And then you come to this and you're like, oh, I'm accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so. We talk on our show all the time about how important it is to reach out to your community and reach out to the people in the genre community. Because for a lot of us, this is our lifeline, right? I was talking to Damon from Slasher last night about how art in general is sort of it's an expression, right? It's a coping mechanism. And horror in particular, and for most fans that I know, is a coping mechanism. It's a way to process trauma sort of vicariously and get through it, right? And that seems like that's what you guys are about, that's what we're about, and that's what this whole community is about, is a way to sort of collectively say yeah, shit's fucked up, but we can make it. So
yeah, man. All right, so you brought up this earlier, and I'm curious. I wasn't at the panel last night, so who wins between Jason and Michael?
Ooh, I think ultimately Jason, only because there were more people from Friday the 13th on that panel than there was only 2 people from the Halloween franchise, and Savini was dead set against Halloween. He was no, fuck that. He kept saying, I killed this person, and we were like, do you mean that you did the makeup? And he's like, no, I killed him. And we were like, okay. But ultimately, I think it was Jason, man. I think he won hands down over Michael. I think that Jason is the more brutal killer between the two of them. So, and it's not to discount Michael in any way, but, at the end of the day, Jason's the one that keeps coming back.
Well, Michael does have Thorn on his side. So.
Well, that depends on which timeline you want to go with. That, and that's the thing, is that at least with Friday the 13th, there's just one through line. There's one timeline. Halloween has been reinvented so many times that you can choose your own timeline, and Michael keeps coming back. Yeah.
You could also argue the same for Jason.
Maybe. Towards the later films, yeah, they definitely had to start getting creative with how he was still alive. I think what is it, 6, where Tommy accidentally electrocutes him back to life. That was a little over the top, but
What about Part 7? Because Part 7 is...
Oh, we don't speak about Part 7.
Oh. I don't know, man. There's like a weird subgroup of people that, like, it's got a cult classic now.
Well, and we kind of talked about that last night on the panel, is that there are certain Friday the 13th films that, like, people love those and no other portion of that saga, right? Like, people that love Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, don't love anything else in the Friday the 13th realm, but they love Part 8. And, like, arguably, that's the worst Friday the 13th movie. To me, at least, that or Part 9. But, like, Part 7 makes... You could take that movie out of the series, and nothing would change, right? Yeah.
I mean, you could also do the same with Part 8. Like, it's...
Dude, everything from 7 on, you could feasibly take out, and, like, it wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, the New Line years, we just covered Jason Goes to Hell in our podcast, and so it's like the New Line years are definitely weird when it comes to, like, continuity, because they're just kind of doing their own thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's more about Bob Shea than anything else, right? The guy that owned New Line, I've watched a lot of interviews and a lot of docs about New Line, and, like, I love New Line for what they were, right, and for what they are, that, like, they pushed the genre community forward when no one else was, and Bob Shea took chances that no one else was willing to take, but he was also, like, just sort of a crazy person when it came to production, and when it came to, like, producing films, and, like, would just produce the most ridiculous shit possible for seemingly no reason. Right? Like, when you think about how Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one, got made, that movie should not have been made. Like, if you think about the premise of that film and what it was to look like for Wes Craven to pitch that to Bob Shea, like, it's insane that movie got made. And same deal with, like, the later Friday movies, man. Like, the New Line era of Friday the 13th, like you said, is just bonkers. Like, there's no through lines in it. It doesn't make sense. Like, Jason Goes to Hell, he's a fucking, like, earwig in the entire film.
Jason Goes to Space, a.k.a. Jason X.
Oh, yeah.
Also gave us David Cronenberg coming into it, which is just bonkers. Bonkers, absolutely.
It's my birthday today, speaking of Cronenberg, and one of my buddies showed up and got me these for my birthday on Blu-ray. Yeah, because I offhandedly said, man, I need to start collecting more Cronenberg on Blu-ray. Speaking of Cronenberg, have you seen Crimes of the Future yet?
It is one of my favorites of this year.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, all I could say is Cronenberg is back, right? Like, it's the first body horror he's done in, like, 30 years, and it's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, my last question, of course, is where can people find the podcast online?
You can go to campnightmare.com. We're also on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, every streaming service possible. But I would say campnightmare.com. You can check out everything there.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Make sure that you guys check the links in the bio and check out Camp Nightmare Podcast, wherever you guys get your podcasts from.
Thank you, guys.
What's going on? We're back at Creature Feature Weekend, and we are sitting here right now with Miss Jenny Allen. She is an independent author. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Enjoying Creature Feature Weekend.
So you have quite a spread here.
I do, yes. I don't just write. I'm also an artist, and I do these rehabbed Christmas houses too.
So what all came first?
Writing came first, kind of. Art was kind of simultaneous since high school. But I didn't start selling art prints until last year at Monster Mania. It was my first con. So the books have been my primary focus.
What a way to premiere your art.
The Monster Mania was very ambitious of me, but I did pretty well, actually. So
that's so awesome to hear. So tell us a little bit about the books.
They're supernatural independent or supernatural forensic thrillers. So kind of think the show Supernatural meets the show Bones. It's kind of a nice blend. I'm a nurse by trade full time, so I use a lot of medical research in my books. Really try to make the characters pop. Emotional gut punches, a little bit of romance, all the good stuff.
So out of all the subgenres of horror, what drew you to want to write supernatural?
I've always kind of been drawn, especially to vampires in particular, because they're so evil and sympathetic at the same time, and I really wanted to make a new version. It's very relatable and very human, where you kind of forget they're not human.
Very true. My wife and I just recently saw The Invitation. I don't know if you've seen it yet. I'll just leave it at that. Just go in blindly. But so tell us a little bit about each book individually.
So Blood Lily is the start of my series. It's a independent contractor, forensic investigator. She works for the NYPD. Her uncle is missing in Tennessee, and her father sends her down there to try and find him, and all kinds of mayhem ensues. It kind of ends in a cliffhanger, which goes right into book 2, which is Rose of Jericho. It just came out about 2 months ago. Takes a nice, fun trip from different places all over the country and winds up back in New York. So Mendy on the end there, I actually do the cover illustrations. I don't do the writing for them, but it's fun.
You have a very unique art style. Do you have like an art style that you like to jump into like more than others?
My classic movie monster series, and it's white charcoal and black paper. Definitely my favorite. I've always loved the kind of melancholy that surrounds those classic movie monsters. I have a piece that's Boris Karloff transitioning into the Mummy. That's my absolute favorite. Like, it's a lot of heavy emotion in that picture.
All right, so I have to ask, since you like vampires, since you like classic, Bella or Christopher?
Oh, Bella or Christopher. I'm not really a huge Twilight fan.
Oh, no, Bela Lugosi.
Oh, Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee?
Oh, I have to go Bela Lugosi.
Can I get a high five? All right, so let's transition over here to the woodworking and kind of like I guess like what would you classify like the top shelf of this?
So the wood burning, I just started a couple months ago and really got into it. None of it's done by laser; it's all done by hand. I started with bookmarks just to have something extra to sell with my books, and it just kind of overflowed into more, like things tend to do. The top 2 shelves are my rehabbed ceramics. So I take Christmas village houses and I kind of mess them up and make them creepy houses.
I really love the ceramics. You have like if you guys are watching this on YouTube, like you also have like the Puff Man, the Puff the Magic Marshmallow, and you got like Scream down here, and it's like, creepy. Just looks like something that was just like a blood sacrifice just took place.
The one in the center there is my Edgar Allan Poe piece. So it's the Raven, the Telltale Heart, the Pendulum from The Pit and the Pendulum, and the Mask of the Red Death.
That's awesome. All right, so my last question is, where can people find you online to pick up the books? And is the art and other stuff on the website?
So I have examples of some of my artwork on the website. I'm still trying to get more of the ceramics and stuff uploaded. But Jenny Allen Books is my website. The books themselves are available at any retailer. You can order them. Ebooks are on all platforms.
Well, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Make sure that you guys check out jennyallenbooks.com. Click the links in the descriptions below. What's going on, guys? Well, if you guys have been listening to us or following us on any of our social medias for any amount of time, you guys know that we are big Jason Voorhees fans here at Victims and Villains. We have been slowly covering the entire series every Friday the 13th, and I am here with 2 gentlemen that share that love. The first being James and Bobby. They are the star and director behind the movie Victim No More. What's going on, gents?
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, how are you? It's a pleasure to be here on Victims and Villains, and considering there's a word that shares in our title.
It's like this interview was meant to be.
It was meant to be. The first interview at this convention is meant to be Victim No More with Victims and Villains, of course.
It's kismet.
All right, well...
This guy isn't a villain in the movie at all.
No.
He's a victim, aren't you?
Yeah. You dig deep enough. There's a story behind everything, even
Of course.
a big scary guy in a mask who wants to kill you.
It's not his fault
There's
what
some
happened to
sensitivity in it.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, let's jump into this movie. Tell us a little bit about Victim No More. This is premiering this weekend at Creature Feature Weekends. As of this recording and interview, we have not seen it yet because it premieres tonight. But tell us a little bit. tell us a little bit about this movie.
Well, it's a story that I've been thinking about for a few years about. Everybody talks about what happens to the trauma that the final girls go through after an experience with Jason and stuff like that. But like, I started thinking about, well, what if these people like had kids? Like, what kind of life would they live, living with people that live with trauma like this? And our story is about a kid named Robbie, who is a child of a survivor that has kind of like an overprotective mother because of what she went through. She doesn't want any danger to happen to him, and he's kind of feeling like he's trapped in a box in a way, like in life, where he wants to kind of, he's grown up, he wants to go live his life, but he feels, like his hovering mother is like too overprotective of him and won't let him do it. He feels paranoid, and with that comes anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that, and maybe depression. And so he kind of he wants to prove to his family that Jason Voorhees isn't around anymore, and he wants to go explore Camp Crystal Lake and kind of show them that their past can't hurt them anymore, that he's been long dead, and you could imagine what happens. But yeah, that's kind of the story. I don't want to give away too much spoilers.
So I'm pretty sure people watching or listening to this right now are going to probably have a similar question. How does this compare to generational trauma that they explored in Halloween 2018?
It's very similar. I guess it's very similar in that sense. Comparatively, I don't know. It's... Yeah, go ahead.
You could certainly correlate, like, our main character, Robbie, to the youngest Strode, who, sees what her grandmother's been going through and the struggles that she's had her whole life, but, has never scared down a murderous hulking mass in a mask with a blade. So, like she's like, she's of Robbie's opinion where, like, all right, it's time to move on. He's locked up. He's never getting out,
It's also, like, they don't understand the trauma that they went through. So, and they have nothing to compare it to. They know they went through something horrible, but they don't understand what it was like to go through something like that. So, in their way of thinking is kind of naive. Like, and it's hard to write a naive character, too, because it's like, some people might be like, oh, what is this kid, an idiot, going back to Camp Crystal Lake to, like, prove that Jason's not there? It's like, to a lot of people, it's a silly idea, but to him, he's passionate about this idea and wants to follow through with it. And it's not going to help their family still get over their past. It's kind of like, but it'll help him cope with life, better.
Yeah, and it also kind of gets into the sort of, like, kind of cult that's arisen around, like, true crime podcasts and things like that, and people looking into these old, like, horrible things that have happened. So there's a whole other subplot with a different group of people that, like, go to seek out Crystal Lake because they heard about the famous murders and, oh, that was Roy Burns, and this was probably a copycat, and this and that and the other thing, and kind of, for someone who's, like, maybe in their early 20s today, like, just discovering, like all these, like, old, like, serial killer things and stuff where they kind of do a deep dive on that and sort of the
and then they regret doing it when they go discover too deeply. Like the podcasters in Halloween 2018. Yeah. It's like, you're playing with fire there, like maybe you shouldn't try to interview Michael Myers.
But yeah, so it kind of touches on that too, and again, without giving too many spoilers away, there is an aspect of, I guess, survivors finding each other and through kind of connecting find their catharsis.
Support groups are very important for
I
feel like that's why we have support groups.
And again, you should just watch the movie because it's like I'd give away too much of a big chunk to really dive any deeper into it.
It's a 40-minute short film. It's like you can't say too much about it.
Yeah, I was talking to James yesterday, and he kind of spoiled a little bit for me. So
that Jason might be in it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when you look at like comparing the Halloween to Friday the 13th, Halloween has always had like that lineage of the Strodes, whereas closest thing that we've ever actually gotten to the to Jason having that would be Tommy Jarvis. And so you guys are kind of breaking down like multiple generations, kind of, bringing out from, Chris from part 3, other aspects with, part 1 and 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Jarvis is, the Jarvis trilogy. I like that all those movies have like a trilogy right in the middle of the series. Like Nightmare on Elm Street has the 3, 4, 5 connection, and the Jarvis trilogy, and
but that's actually a good point to touch on, because we saw what it did to Tommy Jarvis, but there are there's a long list of people who kind of there's 12 movies worth of Tommy Jarvises, so what about some of the other journeys? Maybe that's something we're touching on, maybe not. You never know. You should watch the movie.
Maybe some of them got over their trauma better. Well, not got over, but dealt with it better than others. Like maybe Chris Higgins is still in a mental institution after laughing like a maniac driving in the back of the cop car. We don't know, and it's kind of nice to like possibly explore situations like that of like what might have happened. And that's what's great about like the fan films or the tribute films and everything. It's like, I feel like if there's ever going to be a new Friday 13th movie, like they're not going to explore like the past movies. I don't think they're always going to it's been 13 years now. They're just going to reboot it again and maybe start the story off from scratch, which I'm fine with. That's fine. But it's like they're never going to go back and like explore the past characters from the early movies that we all grew up loving. So it's like, you know what? The fan films is the best way to do that. It's like all those guys out there making these movies. It's, who else is going to do it but us, whether it's like super low budget or you got that never hike alone money, So, this is how you're going to get those stories, I feel, or in novels and other fan fiction.
Yeah, I think the trick with Jason, though, is that he does not have that Strode vendetta. He doesn't have it. So it's like, he's
out of his area.
Yeah, he's much less particular. It's just leave him alone or he's going to kill you. But in the meantime, you look at it and it's like you don't really go for that long sweeping family drama. You really go to see Jason for some of the creative kills. That's what my big feedback about Halloween Kills was that they started like, and Michael Myers was just like, very cold-blooded. He wasn't a very creative killer. He would just kind of kill you, and I think that's what was great about it. And like, in Halloween Kills, they made the kills a little more interesting, but I think that was kind of, I guess maybe, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. That's probably my favorite part of the movie were all the kills, but it was definitely out of character for him. But I mean, hopefully we didn't disappoint in that department,
Well,
I don't know if I'm spoiling anything. But
no, you're not really. Like, I mean, if you're going to make a Friday 13th fan film, there better be a kill in it. So, but I just want to say, kind of a spoiler, but without really spoiling. Speaking of kills, there's a kill in this movie that I've wanted to do in a movie for 22 years. Yeah, and I finally got to do it. And it was originally in a script that I wrote back in 2000, which was Jason versus Michael. Of course.
They've tried to do that.
But now today is actually the premiere day. So it's on the website, victimnomorefilm.com. It's already up there. You can watch it. We're premiering it tonight at the theater at this convention. And it'll be up on YouTube later on today.
So out of all the slashers, I think it's really interesting because, like, right now, like, obviously you said it's been 13 years since our last big screen Jason Voorhees, and a large portion of that has because of all the rights being held up. And so Jason has been kind of the slasher icon that has been explored, it feels like, mostly in these, like, fan fiction and tribute movies. Is that just because, like, we're itching, or is it because, like, with Jason, you don't have that Strode vendetta like you talked about? Like, you can essentially, like, sky's the limit. Like, what is it? Do you feel like as fans of the genre and the franchise that you feel like fans are drawn to?
I feel, I mean, out of all the killers, with those top three of our generation growing up, the Freddy, Michael, and Jason is the most, like, explorable, where, I mean, it really can go anywhere. I like to compare Friday the 13th series to, like, Godzilla. You know, just 35 Godzilla movies out there. And, like, occasionally, like, every 10 or so movies, there's, like, a sort of reboot of that. And then, you know, it's kind of like Godzilla's just coming back to shore for another story, you know, and there's new storylines and all kinds of crazy stuff. It can go anywhere. So I like to compare it to, like, that, you know, where there's a certain, like, pattern to the story, and you can go anywhere with characters, and characters can carry over into sequels, and there's, like, movies that you could totally ignore if you want, if you don't really care for them, because they do something off the wall. You know, like you know, Jason Goes to Hell, there's not a lot of fans of, because of the body hopping story, and it's bonkers, you know.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I know, but, like, but then I'm like, yeah, I mean, we're all fanboys and we're all picky about. My favorite thing about the Friday the 13th series is that you ask any 5 hardcore fans their ranking of the series, 5 completely different answers. You can't do that with, like, any other horror series, because you do with Nightmare and Halloween, it's always like, oh, part 1, and then, like, others, you know, with Dream Warriors, you know, it kind of goes like that. But Friday the 13th is, Jason Goes to Hell might be so many people, like, their favorite movie, because it's the first one that they saw, like, in theaters, so they have a nostalgic feel to it. It's the goriest one out of, like, probably all of them, because of K&B effects. Like, there's great things that are in the movie. It's one of my least favorites, but cool. I don't ignore it. I don't dismiss it. I don't dismiss any of them, even the ones I don't care about. I will still watch every year and enjoy it, like, to some extent. You know, it's like you have to, you know. But I don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah. I mean, for me, Jason is the one.
He's forever.
Yeah, he's the one with the most room for elaboration for a few reasons. Like, let's just arguably say the big three. We'll go Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy, right? Freddy, they try, but he's tied to Robert Englund. You know, I mean, that's a personality that's
it's hard when you talk.
Yeah. It's a brilliant kind of character actor who found his mark. Michael Myers, you know, while you could, and they have, just get a big guy and throw him in the mask. And now, granted, you know, from my personal experience, because I'm sick of hearing that, like, there is a lot more to it than just a big guy in a mask. But still, I mean, his story is really tied around your Strodes, your Dr. Loomis, and things like that. And while you can kind of say, all right, well, this guy's going to play our Dr. Loomis, it's just not the same. Whereas, like, as Jason, you know, I mean, with the exception of Kane Hodder, no 2 actors played him more than once, you know, and they're all different. Like, you look at a Kane Hodder Jason, he's got his stamp on it. You go down the line, you know, I mean, the Jason in Part 2 is a completely different animal than Part 6 Jason, you know, for instance. So, and my Jason's its own thing, too, you know, I mean, I'm not like he's not tap dancing or anything like that. He's still Jason, but there's a lot that goes into getting in that suit and putting the mask on. It's not a cut and dry thing, you know, and I mean, especially, I mean, I can't elaborate too much because I don't want to give away the design, but, you know, I mean, when there's a lot of, like silicone and prosthesis involved, you know, that certainly impedes your movement, and then you have to do things like you have to do stunt work and you have to do physical stuff, and, you know, they're literally either being cooked or crushed. We shot in August, you know, it was 100-degree days. At one point, you know, like, if I wasn't acting directly, I was, you know, half costume off in the shade somewhere, and all I could do is just sit. And then, okay, James, you're using you in 5-10 minutes. Ricky Vitus, our mad scientist of a monster maker, he'd get me back in the suit. I'd get up and do it, cut, go back and sit. You know, if anyone was in my chair, they got moved very quickly. You know, because we'd have to move the chair around just for shade here and there. But
get tick bites.
Yeah, a lot of tick bites. A couple of bouts with heat stroke and heat exhaustion. You know, but I mean, it's no picnic being in that suit, and any actor who played him. You know, I mean, and there are people who've done a lot more than I have. You know, could attest to that. But I mean, you could make your own Jason. You could explore the mythology behind 12 movies of, like, you know.
Every Jason looks different because of different makeup artists. And that's cool because you get identify, hey, that's a Part 8 Jason, or that's a Part 6 Jason, you know.
Like, I mean, help me now. I forgot.
People definitely identify ours as something different, too.
I always forget the name of the character. The guy who lived in Part 2, stayed at the bar, kept drinking.
Steve Charno, Teddy.
Teddy, yeah. What's Teddy up to? You could actually get into that.
You could do a whole movie on Teddy.
Yeah, do something about Teddy. Maybe Teddy's looking for revenge. That's not our movie, but I'm saying it's an idea for somebody at home who wants to make their Jason movie.
Yeah.
So that's
you
the thing.
You could do a whole story about Roy Burns. Part 5.
They did one of those. It's a new beginning, I think they called it.
No, but you know what I mean.
I still want a what's the Ralph Crazy Ralph prequel.
There is a fan film being worked on right now called Pamela, all about Pamela, like before part 1, and I think they're going to explore like Crazy Ralph.
I'm sold.
A little bit. I hope it's like Better Call Saul, where it's like, like Pamela is the Saul character, and like Crazy Ralph is to be like Mike. Like you explore their past a little bit.
You guys talked about this a little bit in the beginning of the interview, but our publication specializes in discussing mental health through pop culture, and you guys definitely are exploring a lot of like the survivor trauma, generational trauma. Can you guys talk about the mental health process of writing the script?
Of writing the script?
Writing the script, making the movie.
That's kind of like what I said earlier. I just kind of want to really tap into a little bit. Without it being too heavy-handed, because then it becomes like a Friday 13th drama, and it's like, I don't know how many fans would want to see that, but like, I work in a hospital, and I often work at a psych ward post. I do security at a hospital, and I see a lot of like people that dealt with trauma their entire life. So I kind of like, I guess that's where I kind of came up with the idea a little bit, and I just really wanted to explore that because I don't know what that's like living with trauma like that and what comes about in that, but I don't know. What about you?
I mean, for me, just acting, prop work. I do the props for the movie as well, things like that. That all came from when it's. Listen, man, I got
came from trauma.
Well, I've got a horde of demons chasing me. I got a lot to unpack, and so, I mean, I definitely have. I definitely
find happiness in hobbies. Yeah.
Well, I definitely struggle with PTSD from things that happened to me when I was younger, and I mean, performing as a whole was just sort of like, I guess, a therapy for that, I mean, and next thing you know, like you make a whole life around it. And my wife on the other side of the spectrum, she struggles with depression and anxiety and things like that, and so we understand each other, but our particular mental illnesses sometimes I guess compete with one another, so to speak. So it's like
support and understand each other.
Yeah, it's a lot of sometimes it's a lot of I guess just learning to kind of work through our own personal traumas and things like that are shooting in very opposite directions. Like when she has a moment, it manifests itself. Me, it's I mean, I may stub my toe, start screaming, and 5 minutes later I'm fine. I just kind of overreacted. Whereas if something happens to Lindsay, it's days and days and days and days and days. So it's I mean, it's sort of a work through for both of us, but I think, and again, without giving too many spoilers away, there is a big theme of catharsis in this that we can't really get into, because we'll just trash the whole ending of the movie. But I mean, again, there's this whole aspect of just I mean, finding.
Well, this is airing after today. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like finding someone whose broken pieces kind of match with your broken pieces, or a group of people, and just it doesn't have to be like a romantic partner or someone you love, but just finding someone you can connect with who has had their own experiences and may be able to shed light on your experiences, and vice versa. Kind of finding a group to work together with to tackle your problems, be it internally or a big scary man in a mask who wants to kill you. So.
And I will say it's probably one of the few Friday 13th movies that like it does end like on a positive note with like a message. It kind of it is about standing up to adversity and fighting the good fight and everything, and getting through trauma. So.
All right, so my last question for you guys is, of course, where can people find the film online, and where can people follow you guys online?
You can find it right now online at victimnomorefilm.com. You can watch the movie right there, hopefully on a big screen. We did shoot in 4K. And you can find it on YouTube channel, 3PD Films on YouTube, and you can see it on there. And Vimeo. If you're a subscriber to Vimeo, it's on there. So 3 different places.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. If you guys love Jason, if you guys are fans of the Friday the 13th, go check out Victim No More and click the links in the show notes below. Have a good night, guys. How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today. All right, so we just covered Lost Boys, not but a couple weeks ago on the Abyss Gazing podcast, so this seems like an appropriate follow-up, Mr. Tim Cappello.
Hey, brother, how you doing? How's everybody doing out there?
How are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good, man. Pretty good. I'm happy to be here. It's going to be a fun weekend. I'm performing tomorrow night. That's going to be the highlight of it for me. But, you know, I love these things, man. I come, get to meet a whole bunch of cool people and hang out, make a couple bucks, you know, never hurt anybody. And, yeah, just happy to be here.
So I got to ask, I feel like your scene from Lost Boys kind of outlives the legacy of the movie itself in some regards. Do you ever, do people know about you before the movie?
Yes. When it came out, nobody made much of a thing about it. It didn't lead to anything for me, like people saying, oh, you want to do a gig, or do you want to make a record, or whatever. But then when I was their parents' age, still nothing. But then I think when the Saturday Night Live thing came out, and then I became their grandfather's age, then all of a sudden all the memes started and all the clips started. You know, let's face it, everybody does short stuff now. You know what I mean? People don't do 2-hour interviews, right? They do little short stuff. So that little short scene kind of makes a lot of sense with younger people today, you know.
Absolutely. And before Lost Boys, I want to talk about your music career now. Everyone knows the scene from Lost Boys. How long had you been playing it at that point?
I started when I was 19, playing professionally. My father had a music school, so I started actually playing music when I was about 3 or 4. But my first professional gigs, my first professional gig was playing piano for Billy Crystal before he was big, and watched him. I did about 5 or 6 years with him and watched him just become a superstar. So that was fun. Peter Gabriel was a real lot of fun. Ringo Starr's All-Star Band was just phenomenal thing to be able to do. And of course, Tina, 15 years. That's a long time. That's a really long time. And I learned so much from her. So I had already been with Tina for about 4 or 5 years when the Lost Boys, when they asked me to do it. So that's what I was spending my days doing. You know what I mean? We were traveling all over the world, She became a big star. I joined her band just before she became a superstar. Yeah.
So I am curious. I love jazz, and I know that it's an unpopular opinion in 2022 to like that kind of genre. At least when I like the people I hang around, yeah. But for someone that plays a saxophone for his living, can you kind of talk about this album that you have here on the table, Blood on the Reed?
Oh, yeah. Here you go. Check it out, Blood on the Reed. I took a lot of my favorite songs and kind of put my little stamp on them. What I tend to do, the sound that I really like is sort of a heavy soul sound with a touch of sort of either Latin or Caribbean sort of industrial percussion in with it to move it along. That's just the way everything seems to come out when I play. So that's what these are, and a new version of I Still Believe. You know, I wouldn't call what I do jazz, but, you know, unfortunately, Clarence Clemons is dead, you know. We lost him too early. And he was a big purveyor of the instrument. But without Clarence, I kind of feel like it's my responsibility, because I'm the only other real rock saxophone player that people know about. And I desperately want to keep this instrument alive in rock and roll. You know, in the 80s, everybody had a sax player, right? Hall & Oates had a sax player. Huey Lewis had a sax player. Tina had a sax player. Obviously, Bruce had a sax player. You know, just every band had a sax. And my own feeling was that smooth jazz killed it. You know, I think kind of that Kenny G sound made people think of the saxophone in a kind of an elevator music kind of way. And that's really a shame. You know, I'm not saying that he's not a good player, but this instrument is a rock and roll instrument. I mean, go back to the 50s and the 60s, it was always a sax solo. James Brown, right? Maceo Parker. This was what soul and rock, you know, was all about. Obviously, you always would, and you always do, have guitar solos in songs. Although now, people don't even really seem to have solos in songs. They just go from one hook to another hook to another hook to another dance move. It's much more about dancing, it seems to me now, than music.
It's very sad to hear that too. Like, I love music, and I love a lot of like older, like 40s and 50s. Frank Sinatra, one of my favorites. So you're singing my tune.
Charlie Parker, Lester Young, John Coltrane, Joe Henderson. If you look, I actually stole this cover from a Joe Henderson record named The Kicker, which was my favorite Joe Henderson record. And until it was done, I didn't even know I stole it. And there was another thing that I stole that I want to own up to, which was on Tina. I got the Lost Boys from a Tina video called One of the Living, which was from Mad Max. And it was a very hardcore kind of real heavy sax solo. And the last phrase I stole from Junior Walker from Urgent. Remember Urgent, Foreigner? Yeah, that was that was Junior Walker playing. And if you listen, you'll see that I stole it, but I didn't know until months later when I heard it, somewhere, wherever I was, and I went, oh, man, I stole that, and I didn't mean to. And then this pattern I stole from Joe Henderson and didn't know I stole it. Oh, well.
Yeah, oh, well. So my last question for you is, our content's unique because we address pop culture, but we do it with the bent to also talk about mental health through that pop culture. And I've heard bits of your story over the years about kind of the fame of Lost Boys. Can you kind of talk about how that has affected you in both a negative or positive way?
Well, if you guys are focused on mental health, in my 20s I was a heroin addict, and it's a constant fight. I have an anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and generalized anxiety disorder. So it's something that I really have to keep an eye on. Substance is always going to be something that I have to fight. But it's worth it, man. It's absolutely worth it. My wife keeps me on the straight and narrow. It's a tough thing a little bit when you're on the road because you're working so hard. You finish, you set up, you do an hour show, then you do a big long table signing, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, oh man, give me a shot of vodka. But you can't do it. I think of it kind of like war, like I can't remember the movie, but there was a really famous movie. Was it Dirk Bogarde or somebody? And they were in a Japanese prisoner of war camp in World War II. And he said, if you don't shave for one day, you're gone. You got to keep yourself before it becomes a problem. You got to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, and you really have to, because if you start slipping a little bit, then you're gone. You're dead. You're dead in the water. You know what I mean? Then you got to start all over again, and it's just such a pain in the ass. So, I'm right there with you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your story.
Yes.
My last question. I know I said that last time, but where can people pick up the album?
Oh, well, I'm on tour now. I'm on a 13-week tour, and because I'm away, I don't have my web store. I just can't make it to the post office. But if they look on my Facebook page, which all you just have to do is just Tim Cappello Facebook, and it's the one that's going to come up. So see if I'm coming nearby to where you are. I'll be touring till the middle of December. So I'm going to be near you somewhere. So I got these. We can take some pictures together, hang out, see a show. I'd love that.
Well, I thank you for your time. Make sure that you guys go check out our episode with Macy Lynn talking about the Lost Boys, and check out Tim's Facebook so that you guys can catch a show near you. Thank you so much.
All right, man. My pleasure.
And that concludes all of our coverage on this year's Creature Feature. Some of the short films that were screened here this weekend might be making a appearance at our upcoming film festival in April at the Alamo Draft House in Winchester, Virginia. And if you're a filmmaker listening to this yourself, consider submitting yours into our festival. We're also accepting screenplays this year, so whether it's screenplays, short films, or feature films, show us your nightmares. Links are in the show notes below. But Alan, once again, where can people find you?
People can find me on my podcast, You Have to Watch This Podcast. Each week, me and my co-host make each other watch a movie one of us has never seen. And we just did all of the Lord of the Rings trilogy that I had never seen. So go make sure to check that out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find that show on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, and you guys can follow me once again. I'm on Letterboxd at Captain Nostalgia. Captain Nostalgia on Letterboxd. You guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube.
Let's talk about Patreon for a second, because I'm the host of the Patreon podcast, and I should have said that before. But check us out on Patreon, because we have been doing a lot of fun stuff over there, talking about some B-tier movies that you may not have heard of, or you may have heard of, but just really bad things about. We take a look at them and deep dive into what we liked, what we don't like, and just the campiness of some of these films. So come over there and check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Brandon and I took over for you this past August, and this past month, I guess I should say. And we did Spy Kids. It was an interesting little dive down memory lane.
Yeah, Spy Kids, I haven't seen in years, but it came up recently, and I blew somebody's mind, letting them know that Machete and Spy Kids is the same Machete in Machete and Machete Kills. So,
yeah. So you guys can also just follow us wherever you guys get podcasts from, and most importantly, check out our mental health resource library, all of which you guys can find in the show notes below. But until next year, that is us signing off for Creature Feature.